time to answer some questions again. And like last time, there were multiple questions dealing with pretty much the same thing. So I've merged it into different topics. So I will cover all the aspects of those questions. Lyrics, a lot of questions about the lyrics. I did not work with Thomas Karlsson this time. I worked with Per Albertsson, but I worked with on Beloved Antichrist. And I even wrote a lyric myself for the first time in 25 years or something. And the topics are dealing with the typical Therion topics, various mythologies. A lot of questions has been about Malta, life and inspiration. I honestly don't think it makes a huge difference where I live for musical inspiration. But I have to say I'm a much happier person living here in Malta. Life is easier here, and it's a safe country. Not so much bad news all the time like in Sweden. And it's warm and nice, something new. And well, taxes are lower also, so we can have a more comfortable life for the same income. I don't want to get too political, but like my biggest problem with Sweden is like the Swedish mentality, the whole system and everything. And as long as I don't live in Sweden, I'm a considerably happier person. It's not just about Malta, it's mainly about not being in Sweden, to be honest. But Malta is lovely. I really like it here. Streaming online show. We had a few requests about that, but for two reasons, you know. One is that the band is spread over the whole planet, so I mean it would be the same cost almost like doing a regular show. If I'm going to fly in Vidal from Argentina, we have Thomas and Rosa living in Spain, Chiara in Italy, and actually we don't have a drummer at the moment, so we would have to get some temporary drummer for it. We have a live bass player, he's from Sweden, so it would be a total circus flying people in just to do that. It would be very expensive, and I really doubt that people would be prepared to pay that kind of cash to see an online show. That's one reason. The other reason is that I simply don't like the idea. I mean, when you make a video clip and you're playing with the camera, I never really liked the feeling because you want to have an audience when you play. It feels a bit stupid and dumb to play in front of a camera. When you do it in front of a camera and when you make a video clip, it's like a necessary evil. But when you play a live concert, it should be something fun. And it's not fun to do it in front of a camera, sorry. You would never get the same spark in the band if you film the show like you get on stage. It's just not the same thing, and I'd rather do things properly or not at all. Songwriting process, quite different from how we normally write songs. I was always a very spontaneous songwriter. I would just get an idea and that's how it is. It's like a little demon sitting on my shoulder singing a song into my ear, and whatever he sings, that's what the song's gonna be like. But with Beloved Antichrist, I had to force myself to write in a certain style because you have different scenes in the musical. And if something happens on stage, if it's a love scene, then obviously it needs to be very gentle music. If it's a happy scene, it needs to be happy music. If it's a war scene, dramatic music. So I had to force myself to learn how to write music in certain directions. And when we decided to do Leviathan as a sort of classic sounding Therion hit album, I thought it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that. And we listened a lot to all the classic Therion songs, the most popular ones, and not trying to copy the songs and not trying to copy any specific albums, but trying to catch the vibe of them and write new songs, carrying on the same spark, the same magic. And that's one new aspect of deliberately deliberately trying to write in a certain direction. The other thing is that in the past I usually wrote songs myself, and if I co-wrote a song with somebody else, they would always send me half-finished song or an almost finished song, and I would complete it. This time, me and Thomas were writing most of the stuff, and we would be sending stuff forward and back all the time. Like I would send him, if I had some small ideas not really leading anywhere, ideas that normally would be just left on my hard drive and never used for anything. But if he had something really good there and I got stuck, I would send it to him. And also he would send me stuff even if it wasn't in a good Therion style at all. For instance, Great Marquis of Hell is the heaviest song on the record. Originally, when he made the first demo of it and he had written a song, it was actually too commercial for Therion, so it was really too commercial. But then he sent it to me and I rearranged it, and now it became a heavy song on the record. So it's actually possible to work in different ways than we've been working the 30 years earlier, and it's refreshing actually that you can, after so many years, still find new ways of working. And I think that's why we were also so productive, because we wrote over 40 songs. Languages sung, well, obviously English. Other than that, it's German, Hebrew, Arabic and Spanish. And guest singers, well, you already know probably that Marco from Nightwish is singing. Actually, when I think about Marco, I'm thinking about Therion, his first band. I grew up with 80s heavy metal, and Therion was a great band. It's a great band actually, but they are from Finland, and I always considered him to be one of the best Scandinavian heavy metal singers when I grew up. So it was really cool to get him to sing on the record. And there will be 3 more guest singers, but they will be presented later on. And questions about how it was to work with Marco. Well, this record was actually recorded from distance. We recorded it in 9 different countries because the Corona chaos prevented us from flying to one place and record together. So we would have to send files, book local studios in different countries and record and send the files over internet. So it was the same thing with Marco. We recorded in Finland, and well, I sent him a demo tape from the song, and he was supposed to record a verse in the song actually, but he recorded the whole song. He recorded the verse and the bridge and the chorus, and I really liked what he did in the chorus. So I decided to use the chorus instead, and Thomas, who was supposed to sing the chorus, he got to sing the verse instead. But since he recorded the whole song, I thought it would be a terrible waste not to do something about it. So we made a mix where they sing how I intended it from the beginning, and there's another mix where Marco is singing the whole thing, which will be used later on as bonus material. A lot of questions about that. Yes, there will be a producer's edition of CD, which will be a digipack, where you will have these bonus versions with Marco, and there will also be a few other different versions. There will be alternative vocal versions, and there will be instrumental versions, so you can have your own karaoke, and also an orchestral version with only orchestra, so you can actually hear how incredibly much details and work we put into the orchestration, which unfortunately isn't heard as much as you would like in a mix, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in the mix. Guitars, there's vocals and orchestra, and everything is fighting for attention, and making a mix is always about making compromises. And El Primer Sol, well, I'm not surprised to get questions about that. Mexico, you love Quetzalcoatl. I mean, outside of Latin America, I guess Quetzalcoatl it's a decent song, it's a catchy song, people like it, but it's not really what people request when we play live. We did play it on the last tour, but that was an exception. In Mexico, after we've done with Rise of Sodom and To Mega Therion, and when we normally would be done with the show, we have to get on stage again for another encore and do Quetzalcoatl. It would just be impossible not to play the song there. And when we wrote songs, like I mentioned, we didn't copy individual songs. Maybe with one little exception. El Primer Sol is not a copy of Quetzalcoatl, but it's a continuation. It relates lyrically and musically. It's a similar category of song, so it's gonna be a very popular song in Mexico, I bet. Somebody asked if it's a concept album. No, it's not. It's just a bunch of songs. And questions about the orchestration. Well, it wasn't possible to gather an orchestra because of the corona restrictions. Here in Malta, there was a restriction of meeting maximum 3 people at the same time, so it would have been me, the conductor, and 1 instrument, and it's not much of an orchestra, so we had to work with Vienna instruments again. But I have to say, the new Synchron series of the Vienna is so fucking good that I don't really hear the difference between real orchestra and the samples anymore. I mean, this is the top of the line, the best samples you can get. Most of the film music you hear, in modern movies, they're done with Vienna. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll continue to use Vienna instead, because you get perfect and you can always go back and change things if you're not happy with it. When you record with real orchestra, we don't really have a budget, so we can rehearse with the orchestra, so we have to play prima vista, it's called. That means play it the first time. Basically, they get to score, they read, and they play. And then you can maybe take a few more times if you're not happy with it, but it's always a bit of a compromise. And once it's done, you cannot undo it. I mean, it will cost a fortune to record again. So to work with Vienna instruments actually gives you a lot of liberties. It's less limiting because you can always go back and redo something if you're not happy with it. Make alternative versions, whatever. There's just one thing I don't like with Vienna instruments. The solo violins, they sound decent, but not near as good as a real one. So we used real solo violin on the record. And that's the 11 questions for this time. So stay tuned and wait for Leviathan.